Afternoon, everybody. It's a cool, lovely morning here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Well, south of Minneapolis. On a Tuesday, upper Midwest. It's probably 62, 64 degrees, something like that, which is pretty pleasant. You know, the humidity ain't too bad. Air's kind of thick, but it's not like, but the rain thick. It's just big, cloudy and gray. Sometimes you find cool in the strangest places. Charlie Barnett on the Ava label out of the West Coast. Just a great, light, bubbling confection. This thing is just a treat. This version of Jazz Skyliner is just the coolness. Coachella Blue, fantastic. Apparently, Coachella has been a hit place to be for a lot longer than just the festival. Anyway, fantastic West Coast stuff. Another one of those little West Coast labels. And West Coast labels, when they feature jazz, don't tend to be like the East Coast jazz labels that are just nothing but hardcore jazz. They kind of will drift between the poppier side of things to the cool side of jazz. Much more marketable, much more commercially viable. That's why a lot of those little West Coast labels, their titles stuck around and they're part of the lexicon at this point, to the point where like a lot of that stuff gets reissued, even though the labels are kind of obscure as heck. That's a classic album cover. Classic Charlie Barnett. He was one of the hardest swinging white cats. He was also a white swing band leader who never shied away from mixing his band. He had black and white players throughout most of his career, which was more unique than we realized at that time. Today, of course, is the 500th episode, and I had about a dozen testimonials, videos from people who've been watching the channel for a long time. They wanted to share with us their thoughts about jazz, what the channel has meant to them, just saying hello and putting a face to a name and comments and response to all that stuff. Some good stuff in there. I appreciate you guys all for donating those little tidbits for this episode. Thanks for everybody who's stuck around for any length of time on this channel. It's been a great experience for myself. 500 episodes, who'd have thunk? Of course, there was a stretch there in 2019, 2020, where we were doing an episode almost every day because of the pandemic, which kind of really upped the volume real quickly. But it's been a great learning experience for me. And no one's learned more from the Jazz Shepherd channel than the Jazz Shepherd himself. Every time you do research, every time you try to connect dots and make correlations and chronological connections, genre connections, label, geographical, there's just so much that happens that the closer you look at it, the more it all starts to become clearer. The descendancy and the ascendancy and the movements, the developments, the innovations. It's a pretty magical time in the history of jazz. And there's still lots to discover. There's still lots to uncover. And so, like any good archaeological site, even though we've exposed 10 city blocks, we feel like there could be square kilometers left of city to excavate when it comes to the jazz universe. And so there's lots of digging left to do. By no means am I running out of episodes. I sometimes challenge myself trying to find new ways to present things. And of course, you're always going to cross-reference stuff you've already discovered and talked about. But I try not to regurgitate stuff too much. But it's, it is what it is. Every orator shares the same speech at times. Speaking of that, we have thrown into our face now in America another great tragedy. In Buffalo, New York, for those of you who are not familiar with New York, it's upstate New York, near Lake Erie, on the western end of Lake Erie. The great city of Buffalo, who's seen a really sharp decline in the last 50 years, like most of the Rust Belt cities had, as manufacturing jobs left. All that black migration that came north for those jobs was left struggling, trying to replace themselves in society with little buffer of concern to help them. And so black neighborhoods became more and more isolated and more impoverished, although they were already always struggling. But the manufacturing jobs did give stability for a sense of time. And a lot of the jazz players of the 60s that we love so much came from that stability of black communities in the North having black schools and universities, degrees and jobs and affluence And it was never wealth, but it was always sustainable. And that's declined greatly in America. And as much as the white Americans lost a lot of his footing with the unions being squashed and just the proliferation of what the corporate interests want and their votes are all that matters, minorities are even more on the fringes. And so we see in Buffalo this atrocity, a white guy targeting the black community and assassinating 10 innocent people. And it is a weird time because this correlates with something I had just been kind of realizing over the last few days. And I've been sitting in my car driving, just running through this thought process. And then this event happens, which out of this tragedy, I at least want to make one analysis. This type of tragedy is something the black community has faced in America on a daily basis in terms of the fear of is today the day. Am I going to get shot by a cop? Am I going to get shot by someone in my own community? It's the fear and the tension and the constant struggle that is life as a black male in America today. And as a black woman, you can get shot being a black woman in a grocery store, apparently, in Buffalo, New York. 10 people with an assault rifle that I don't think there was, how many people were injured and didn't die? It's the type of gun where you get shot with it, you die. Those type of guns don't necessarily need to be available for human consumption to hunt humans with. Shame on you, corporate America. Shame on you, gun manufacturers. Shame on you, political systems, for being unable to regulate something where such great crimes against humanity can be committed. And yes, you are culpable. Yes, you are part of the problem. You run unregulated production of weapons. It's inherently evil. And it's rooted in greed and not in freedom in any shape of the word. Nothing free about people clutching on the guns, terrified. That's the opposite of freedom. That's living in fear. And they have to manufacture this fear to keep people clutching onto those guns so tightly because there's nothing really that dangerous at your doorstep. And so these people are walking around in a state of fear, perpetually afraid of the black man, afraid of the Muslims, afraid of the Asians, the Russians, just living in perpetual fear. Where these mentally unstable people can get a gun like that and go into a supermarket and slaughter humans. Shame on you. Shame on you. You know who you are, and you're putting your own children's and children's lives at risk because karma does come back around. You better believe it does. If you haven't read the history books, you're going to get what you deserve. It doesn't have any other ending. That's what justice is. And so when I talk about my brushstrokes of environment that you're born into, the experience you have within that environment, and your personality, how you handle your experience within your environment, that dictates what a jazz musician is playing. And I talk a lot about the sorrow and the grief and the agony that the black man's expressing through his environment, experience, and personality. Because jazz is this fabric that's an improvisation based off how I feel. Emoting is just that. It's expressing how I feel. And now put yourself in the shoes of a black American today. Find me a black American that's not a little angry today. You won't find one. Because that's something they wear as a community. That's a threat that faces all of them. And so when you think about those three brushstrokes of environment, experience, and personality, and sometimes people want to say to me, they'll go, white people have grief and sorrow too. And absolutely, white people lose parents and lose children and fight disease. And there's a ton of heartache in life, regardless of who you are. What differentiates the black experience in America is injustice. And white Americans don't know about injustice. We don't know about that type of grief, that type of sorrow, that type of agony, that type of fury. And there's a great difference between your mom dying from cancer, a little too young, versus the agony of tyranny, of someone being lynched, someone going to jail unjustly, someone dying in the streets unjustly. A young black child being shot unjustly. When you're carrying a grief and a sorrow that's rooted in injustice, a preventable event, there's an anger that's associated and affiliated with that type of experience that even the soft personality types can still be angered and fueled by. And we don't have any type of kinship with that as white Americans, as white Europeans. We don't really understand injustice and how we define injustice versus the injustice they've seen as a people for centuries here. It makes their level of emoting and where they're sharing from and what they have to say that much realer and more painful and that more visceral. And like I said, sure, as a white player, you can have all kinds of sorrow. You can be all kinds of pained. But until that sorrow or that pain has that layer of injustice woven through its fabric, you'll never truly understand how Black America feels today. It's an atrocious event, unspeakable, unfathomable, and unforgivable. And America, you are to blame. Your 400 years of history is to blame. Your unmitigated weapons deals is to blame. The greed of profit above all else is to blame. There's so much shame to be spread around here. I'm indignant. Americans don't have very good global connectivity, so they don't recognize how isolated this shit is to America. I mean, you have the odd incidents here and there. A crazy kid in Norway, someone, things happen elsewhere from time to time. But the persistence of hate and fear and anger and violence in this country, coupled with the availability of weapons of war for the mass public to consume, has created a climate of absolute devastating results. And there's no defense. There's no argument. There just isn't any reason why the public should be able to get an AR-15. And I live in a town where there's townsfolk here who have those type of guns. And they're just waiting for that day where they hit bottom and they go out and they clean up a restaurant or a supermarket. And God forbid they're racially motivated, because then they commit a hate crime like what we saw in Buffalo. And there just isn't the words to express my level of anger. And all I want to at least glean from this is for you to put yourself in the shoes of Black America today. And recognize that if you are 5 white jazz musicians and you're about to play and you're chatting, smoking a cigarette, having a little coffee or a little wine, and you're about to record a session, chances are one of those 5 guys has some sorrow in their life right now. Chances are one of those guys is suffering from some grief through a family member, a child, a parent, a lost cousin, a town's friend. I mean, you never know. But chances are none of them are suffering or struggling with injustice. Now, you take 5 black men in this country about to record a jazz session, there's a great chance at any given time, one or more of those guys is suffering from a sorrow and a grief that's fueled by a layer of injustice, a preventable disaster, a preventable evil that was beset upon them and their family, that couples their anger and rage with their sorrow. And that's a different type of sorrow. It's a different type of grief. It's one thing when your grandma dies and there was nothing that could have been done about it. Your dad died from cancer, there was nothing that no one could do. It's another thing when your wife's picking out watermelons and some beets for dinner tonight because the family's coming over and they get gunned down. They get gunned down for being black. And if he doesn't think that gives him some apprehension and some anger and some sorrow that you've never experienced, white America, you're so wrong. And so when that jazz group 50 years ago went to record six black young men, the sorrow of black America rings throughout the community. If a young black kid got lynched in Memphis this week, that impacts us five guys up here in New Jersey about to record for Rudy Van Gelder. We know what happened in Memphis. Kid didn't do nothing. He was just accused of something. And a white mob thought they were bringing justice. But all they did was edit out injustice. They meted out a punishment that wasn't theirs to hand out. Sure, there's riots. Sure, there's crazy things happening in the world today. But it's focusing you as a people, as a community. It comes out in the message of the music and the art that you make, and every breath that you speak, every syllable you enunciate through that horn. There's a sorrow unspeakable, fueled by a great injustice that has run for centuries. And so when I speak about environment, experience, and personality, when you add that layer of injustice to those things, it separates the black man from the white man incrementally. And they might be able to play the same scales and the same notes and the same keys and the same changes. They might be able to blow through Cherokee and not be able to hear the difference. But if you could see the difference with your eyes and know that that black man is dealing with some sorrow and some grief, because I've never met a black group of men where there wasn't someone in that circle going through something tough right now. Injustice is rampant in the black community. Black kids die young all the time. The black male has an 8 years shorter lifespan in America than the white male. That's injustice in action. And I'll give a caveat, I haven't looked at that number in the last couple of years, so it could be different with COVID and all that. But the average life expectancy of the black male in America has always been 8-10 years shorter than the white counterpart. And there's many factors to that, from gun violence to incarceration to homicide to poverty to lack of access to health care for the poor. A lot of things factor into that number. But they all fall under the title of injustice. So when justice befalls you and you're suffering and dealing with a kind of sorrow far greater than my grandma has cancer, until you've experienced that, I once in a while, just for comparison's sake, try to put myself in their shoes by saying, what if this was Canadians that were targeted? A group of Canadians came down to a theme park and someone shot them all up because they were Canadian. That would make me feel something on a different level. If they were lynching Canadians, it would make me hurt and be afraid. Because some things you can't change. And I can hide my national identity far better than a black man can hide the pigment of his skin. And so when we look at things like Buffalo, the only thing you can take away from of any construct is it informs us about the pain and sorrow and injustice that the black community has suffered with for centuries. Shame on you, America. Shame. And I did not mean to make my 500th episode this tone, but it would be wrong on me not to address it. Especially since I was already in my car, I even wrote it on my hand, sorrow versus injustice, and marker is kind of washed off now. But I didn't want to forget it because it was in my car. I was like, ooh, I need to remember that. So I took a highlighter and I wrote it down, just the initials so I would remember, because I think it's a powerful other blanket, other level to add to that brushstroke analogy. The power of injustice and how that fuels an anger because your relative, friend, loved one didn't just pass. They passed without having to have done so. They were taken from you unjustly. Boy, you take away my child or my wife, there's already a tragedy and a grief and a sorrow that's unimaginable. But you do it via injustice, and something happens to a family member or a loved one or a parent, that was preventable and didn't need to be. I mean, you want to know what it sounds like? Put on some Harbot. Put on some Sonny Clark, some Lee Morgan. You'll hear it. You'll feel it. Put on Max Roach, We Insist, and understand that injustice is fueling that resistance, not just sorrow. And so anyway, I'm going to leave it at that. Shame on you, America. Buffalo, these things shouldn't happen. We're praying and we're with the black community in Buffalo and all the chocolate cities in America. May the heavens soothe you, calm you, and may the cosmos bless you. And what else can you say? There's just no words sometimes. Just no words for the type of hate and injustice that has fueled art in this country from the African American angle for centuries, and what jazz is a testament to. So I'm going to move on. We're going to let the people who want to share fill in the next little space here. Appreciate you all for contributing those little videos. Great stuff. You all showed some great records. I'm great that the channel's had that impact on so many of you guys, and you guys appreciate coming here for the comedy, the banter, the intellectual discussion, the music, the recommendations, all the different facets that we try to present here on this channel. And we try to keep it about the music and the social impact and the contracts that we've created with ourselves and the society. So cheers to all you guys. Here's the 500 more episodes in the next 3 years. Y'all be blessed. Stay safe. Thanks again for everyone for your contributions. Thank you all to my Patreons. Thank you to everybody who's bought merchandise in the merch store. It's a blessing to be a part of this. And I'm glad that we've found this community because I am edified and built up by it as much as anybody else. I gain a lot from the feedback and the comments. And it's not like this channel is making me a ton of money. It's making a little bit now. But it's not like I show up here every week because it's like my job. I do this because I love it. And the thing I've learned in life, when you do something because you love it, you do it regardless of how it pays you. And if you keep at it because you love it, you might eventually get paid. I'm hoping a couple years from now, this channel is going to take me into my retirement. And that we'll find an audience that just keeps doubling and getting bigger and more powerful. And we'll find a unity through that and a progress maybe that can come out of it. And I know we've done our share of building community here on this channel between black and white, Americans and Europeans, the Far East, Australians. Just the comments alone on these people coming up here. We got Australia, we got Sweden, we got Denmark, we got Scotland, Ireland, UK, Americans. Just a wide swath of people from all over the world who enjoy what this channel has to talk about and share with them. So that's just an amazing facet that I never could have imagined. So tears of pain and sorrow for Buffalo. Black America, our hearts are with you. May the justice come down swiftly on this clown. And there's no punishment good enough. There just isn't. You know what I mean? You can't replicate the sorrow and tyranny and fear and anger that you created for this people in this community that's being felt across the country. There's nothing we can do to this shooter to replicate that and undo that. I'm left shaking my head. These things should not happen. On that note, I love you all sincerely. John Coltrane's rolling in his grave right now, seeing how little progress we've made. Assault rifles gotta go. Peace.
Daniel's really great. He's turned a lot of people onto some good albums, and I highly recommend the Jazz Shepherd to anyone.
Hey, what's up? My name's Joey Caglio. I'm a lifelong music lover and musician. Got into jazz when I was about 25. The usual stuff, Brubeck, Miles Davis, etc., and expanded from there. I love learning about the history of music. I'm kind of a fan of the 20th century of music, basically. I ran into this channel, the Jazz Shepherd, I don't know, about a year and a half ago now. And it definitely upped my game as far as musical history knowledge. There's nothing like it actually out there, if you ask me. This is kind of a college level information. It's presented in a really kind of easy to understand way, and there's tons of information. I ended up going back to the first ones because it was so good, and it's taken me forever because I end up taking notes. I don't just watch it. I get information, and yeah, I'll buy something if I like it. Anyways, Dan, the Jazz Shepherd, fantastic. Love the show. Love the channel. Love the social justice aspect. It's very well done. Anyways, congratulations on 500 shows, and here's to 500 more.
Hey man, greetings from Sydney, Australia. Just want to say big thanks to all the effort you put in. You're really the most well-researched jazz YouTuber out there. You know, there's no topic which I think you'd raise which you don't add something new and bring up some little fact which I hadn't thought about before. And you've really helped me build my own collection. So I also have you to thank for hooking me up with Face Records in Japan. I've gone a little bit crazy recently, but some really great stuff there and some great bargains. So congratulations on the 500th episode. Looking forward to 500 more.
Hi Dan, hi everyone. I'm George from Scotland, and I've watched Dan for quite a few years now, or 2 or 3 years, I don't know. Love your channel. One of the main channels for me on YouTube for sure. Learning about the history of jazz, and I mean I bought jazz 25 years ago, Kindy Blue, and I had a wee Miles Davis collection, etc., but not very much, and I've collected more in the last 3 or 4 years, and thanks to Dan, the Jazz Shepherd, I've been collecting more and getting to know a lot more about jazz. Here in Scotland, it's really hard to pick up jazz records, and obviously the reissue market is on eBay and discounts. I live near Edinburgh, the capital city, but jazz stock of used jazz albums is pretty poor. Not very good ones. So I'll show you 3 albums. Just I've got a little record shop just 2 minutes from me, which is unusual in these parts where I am. And this album I picked up lots of times because I love the cover, but it wasn't a big name like John Coltrane or Hank Mobley or whatever, so I always passed on him. But it's Charlie Mariano, and it's called Plays. And this is on Bethlehem from 1956. This is a Japanese 1976 copy, and Dan spoke about this album quite a bit. This is it's a mono recording. There's a Japanese insert, it's no obey, and it was £15, and I always sort of looked at it and went, oh no. But anyway, eventually picked it up, and it's a fantastic album. I'm glad I did. Another cool one I've got in my collection is Jackie McLean and Tina Brooks' Street Singer from 1960. It was recorded but never released by Blue Note until Japan in 1980 released this version, just a normal label. I just have an insert, Japanese insert, you can't read anything. Fantastic album. 3 of these tracks appeared on Jackie's Bag, the album, but this is the original proper release. And next off we have one that it's not a jazz album per se, but Dan recommended this LP recently, so it's a UK 4-piece Rudimental. This is their second album from 2015. A great wee fun album with different singers, whatever. Check it out for a party album. Thanks a lot, Dan. Catch you around. Cheers, mate.
Hey Daniel and the Jazz Shepherd community. My name is Oisin and I'm 27, living in Athy, County Kildare in Ireland. Congratulations on 500 episodes. I got into jazz through being a musician. I went to college. I was a guitar player, played in metal bands in my teens, and rock bands. And as soon as I got into college, it was that was the goal, to be able to play jazz and expand on your musicality. And it really, musically and artistically, it helped me connect with the genre. And the gateway drug was, like many people, kind of blue. I was told to listen to that and dissect all the Miles' solos and John Coltrane's, and I used that as an umbrella then to get into John Coltrane and Bill Evans' shape, the Portrait in Jazz and Live in the Village Vanguard, Giant Steps. Really dug that for a while, and kind of dabbled in jazz for a couple of years. I didn't get into it really until the Blue Note reissue started happening, to be honest. So like that really did help me get into jazz more, and all these names like Hank Mobley and Lee Morgan, like I was learning those guys, and it was a great education. But I was picking up stuff. I was getting the classic series and a few Tom Poets, watching the audiophile channels on YouTube. But they were all just talking about presence. I was kind of more into the music, and was looking for these documentaries that just didn't exist. Like for I know there's I Call Him Morgan, but there's very few for all these jazz guys that are kind of undervalued, in all of our opinion. But your channel, like a 100-fold my jazz knowledge has come up since I've been watching you. The social issues are very educational and valuable. Like, it's absolutely true what you say. They're speaking through their instrument without words, and it's more honest that way. And they weren't really allowed to publish words like that anyway in the 60s. So that's eye-opening a lot, and it's helped me as a musician to realize that it's not all about chords and scales, and like that's valuable to have the vocabulary. It's like muscle memory, how to play all that stuff, complex stuff, and then you're just using it to express yourself. My favorite jazz album at the moment is Speak No Evil. I just love how diverse it is. It's got like the hard bop and post bop edges to it. Then it's got like Infant Eyes. It's kind of in like the soul jazz. Well, it's slower and kind of that midnight vibe that you talk about. The Jazz Shepherd channel is such a valuable resource. We'll be watching it as long as you're doing videos, and thanks so much for the opportunity to show our faces and get involved in the community. It's great. Thanks.
Congrats, Dan, on episode 500, also on 4,000 subscribers. I noticed just recently. On YouTube, I'm Zen Takis with an X, and I've been watching the Jazz Shepherd for a little over a year or so. And cutting to the chase, I just wanted to share the top 3 records that I got because of the Jazz Shepherd. So, first one, The Three Sounds, Feeling Good from 1960. I've been listening to jazz for about 25 years, but my knowledge was really focused on mid-60s post-bop. The Three Sounds just weren't on my radar until I started watching the Jazz Shepherd. But Gene Harris is a monster piano player, and I'd say nobody can squeeze more rhythm and soul into a measure of music than Gene Harris. This is a original mono Blue Note, plays great. I got it for 20 bucks on eBay less than a year ago. The stuff is still out there. Second one, Howard Rumsey, Music for Lighthouse Keeping, recorded in 1956. I had some awareness of West Coast jazz and contemporary records, but I didn't know about Howard Rumsey, and kind of assumed that all this stuff was really laid back without a lot of edge. That's not this record. This has 25-year-old Sonny Clark on piano, and the killer lineup. Otherwise, Conte Condoli, Frank Rosalino, Stan Levy, all killer players. Check out the song Mambo Las Vegas. Really great record. Lastly, Johnny Lytle Trio, Moonchild. This is one I definitely would never have found without the Jazz Shepherd. Johnny Lytle's a great vibes player. This is a cool record with organ, Ray Barretto on congas. I actually got this for $6 plus shipping on eBay. Turned out to be in VG Plus condition, just a little ding in shipping. But great records. Thanks a lot, Jazz Shepherd, and congrats.
So hey there, this is Marcus from Sonic Safari, and first of all, Dan, congratulations, 500 videos, what an achievement. It couldn't happen to a nicer guy. Me, myself, I started listening to jazz 12 years ago, and I know that for a fact because we were expecting my first daughter at the time. I was living in Madrid, Spain, and mostly listening to grunge and alternative music, but wanted a different vibe in my house. So there was this restaurant selling Southern food in my neighborhood, and we used to go there all the time, and they were always playing jazz. So I asked the owner, who was this American guy that had moved to Spain, what it was, and he said it was Chet Baker. That's where I started, and I admit it, I might have become slightly obsessed with getting Chet Baker records because it really reminds me of that very special time in my life. But what defines jazz for me, I would say, is the vastness of it, and that's where someone like you, Dan, comes into play. You really need someone to shepherd you through all the artists and releases. And also something that I really appreciate about your channel is that you talk about the social and the political impact of jazz, which is incredibly important, and I have learned a lot from you, and I really appreciate it. So what would I like for the next 500 records? Well, I think as most of us, we start in the Blue Note world and then slowly work ourselves into kind of more unknown artists and labels. So that's where I would like to see you help out more as we move along. But again, congratulations and the best of luck for the next 500 videos.
What's up, Dan? What's up, the Jazz Shepherd and the whole vinyl community? It's just going to be a quick shout out. I'm listening to some Wes Montgomery in the background. Had long weeks, so just chilling out. I thought I'd record a video and say a big thanks, man. You're an invaluable resource, great companion on this journey of collecting jazz. I started around when COVID started. It's like selling my dad's old classic rock records and getting into a totally new genre for me. So I've learned a lot from your channel, and the whole social angle is, invaluable to hear about as well. So thanks. Keep fighting the good fight, putting out those great videos. I'll support you in any way I can. Peace from Stockholm.
Hi, Dan. Congratulations on 500 episodes. This channel has taught me so much. I can't wait for the next episode. And, recording videos and sending them out, not really my thing, but I just felt compelled to say thanks. Thanks for all of your hard work. These episodes are hard work. Thank you for, sharing what you know, for allowing us into your home. Jazz is great. And 25, 50, 75 years from now, people are still going to be watching your videos and learning about this great art form because it has been distorted, and the way people understand it is a crime. But you are fixing that, and thank you so much for keeping the music at the center. Thank you for keeping the spiritual core of the music at the forefront. I appreciate all of that, and as long as you're making these videos, I'll be here to watch them. And I certainly appreciate them. So thank you so much.
Hi everyone, it's Bruce here from UK, London to be precise. First of all, congratulations to Dan, the Jazz Shepherd, for his 500th episode, which is coming up, and I hope to be a part of sharing a very short video with you. I got into jazz, when I was quite young, but as a result of actually working near a second-hand vinyl shop about 15 years ago, which I just stumbled into by chance. And it was a veritable Aladdin's cave of records that they had stored there. That's how I really got deep into it. and just by talking to the proprietor and people who work there about jazz, kind of fueled my interest. So yeah, it's a fascinating music, and Dan's channel's always got something interesting to impart to his audience. So keep it going, Dan. Good, good job with that. I'll showcase just one LP today. I thought about various discs that I could show, but for the purpose of brevity and being able to pinpoint one particular album, I've chosen Easy by Clifford Brown. This is actually a UK press, it's a reissue. I think it's comparatively cheap, easy to get hold of, so if any of you out there are interested, it's on the, I can show you, the British Fontana, which is mainly a reissued label anyway. I think this one came out in the mid-60s. It's an album I come back to time and again. It really is a fantastic lineup. It's got Harold Land and Sonny Rollins sharing tenor duties on here. Also, of course, you've got Max Roach on drums. It's an absolutely terrific album. I think it was probably issued originally on Embassy or something in the 1950s, but I recommend it highly. So if you can find that one, it's a great disc to have. Anyway, thanks very much, Dan. I shall be watching your 500th episode, and may there be many more to come. Bye.
Hello, Dan. This is Larry Smith in Lincoln City, Oregon. It's good to see somebody who has as much devotion to jazz, music, and humanity as you. Here's to 500th episode. This is my jazz I'm into. It started with Grateful Dead and Allman Brothers. Then it became John Coltrane, Art Blakey, and you've turned me on to a lot of cool stuff. Again, you're a good example of humanity. You get an A+. Here's to you.
Hi Dan, this is Howard recording for the Jazz Shepherd. You asked us to give a brief introduction to ourselves for your 500th anniversary, and congratulations to that. Really enjoying your channel. I first got into jazz music in the early 1980s. Had the fortune to have a couple of guys that were retiring then. I was only in my late teens, showing me the way really with regards to all the sort of greats in jazz. I built up a small record collection of vinyl and then sold it in the 90s, which happened to a lot of people. In the last 10 years I've been collecting again. I've got a small jazz collection, but it's sort of growing. And I think although I had a basic understanding, certainly you've given me a lot sort of broader brush really of the jazz canon than what I had before. For instance, this record I'm playing right now, Harold Rums's Lytle All Stars, I'd never really thought of buying this sort of LP without your channel. So really enjoy the input, really enjoy what you do for the channel and what you do for everybody in terms of the effort you put into your episodes, and a lot different to what a lot of other people are doing. A lot of people are doing audio file recordings, and that's great, but you give a completely different perspective. I'd love to come and see you at some point in the future if the chance ever arises. And by the way, I live in Wiltshire. I'm about 20 miles away from Stonehenge. So it's a small sort of market town called Melksham that I live in. Only really a few local record shops, so I buy most of my stuff really on eBay at the moment, and out in the world when I can find things. Anyway, thanks very much. Congratulations on reaching your 500th episode, and long may it continue. Cheers.
Dan, the Jazz Shepherd, 500 episodes in. Congrats. Just like to show my appreciation that I really appreciate everything that you do. A lot of hard work that goes into your channel. But not only that, you're a real genuine guy, good banter. And yeah, I always look forward to a Jazz Shepherd episode when I come in from work. You're quite a celebrity in our house. The missus and the two kids all know you as the Jazz Shepherd, which is quite funny. But yeah, I can't even remember the first time I joined the flock, but it was quite early on. I actually thought I knew quite a bit about jazz, and then I kind of came to the realisation I knew very little. But as you know, we've become quite good friends, and I've came from sort of a bit of a similar background. I owned a record shop for 10 years, and I DJ'd for probably 20 years, all over the place basically. And over the years, my musical taste and knowledge is varied, as you do. But you know, jazz and jazz has took over definitely my passion over the last sort of, I'd say about the last 8 years. But yeah, so it's all good. I hope you've got another 500 in you. I just thought I'd pull a few records, just what I felt were a bit synonymous with the Jazz Shepherd in your channel. Music that you've turned me on to that at the time I didn't really know about. So the first one, Jimmy Smith, great late night vibes, 2 in the morning stuff, great with a bourbon and a cigar. Helen Merrill with Strings, absolutely love this record. A big Jazz Shepherd fave, and also a mine now, Blues in Orbit. A label that I had no clue about until I started watching your channel, Savoy Records, Curtis Fuller featuring Yusef Lateef. Absolutely love this record. And the last one, probably one of my favourite Blue Note covers, and a great artist, and it's just a great album, Thad Jones. So thank you for all the recommendations over the years, and like I say, keep on keeping on. Say hi to the family. I hope you get that coffee shop off the ground, and who knows, you know, in the future we can hopefully catch up for a few beers and a chat and a handshake. But until then, peace.